Now it's time to talk all things La Liga, and we can cross live to Semra Hunter. Semra, good morning. Great to have you with us. First up, we've got to talk about Unai Emery. Officially begins his role at Aston Villa manager after leaving Villarreal. He'll be on the training pitch for the first time today. Does he have a hands-on approach to training with the first team?
Absolutely. I think hands-on is a very good way to talk about Unai Emery. He's someone who is very detail-oriented. He loves to have his players ultra-prepared. He'll have a plan set up from A to Z, make sure that they always have some kind of solution at the ready at any instance of every game. He loves to study his opponents, again, in very great detail to figure out what their weaknesses are so they can exploit them, and also know what their strengths are so that they can nullify them, and he can then adapt them to the players that he does have. I think the most important business of order for today and for the coming days would be to galvanise the players and to lift their spirits based on where they are in the table and based on what happened at the weekend with their big-handed defeat. So I think more importantly, he'll almost have to be like a psychologist today to try and really get everyone to believe in themselves, to lift the mood and to get confidence back in themselves so that they believe that they are better than where they currently sit in the table.
Semra, now, Lionel Messi has been linked with a return to Barcelona, but he's also reportedly been held talks with the MLS side into Miami. So could you see him returning to Barcelona?
Honestly can't, at least not as a player. I think one day he will come back to the club, but in a different type of capacity. I think the plan always was that whenever he was done with Europe, he was going to go to the US. A couple of years ago, he gave an interview where he said openly that he wanted to try life in the US, that he was very curious about experiencing the culture and the lifestyle over there. And so I think he originally thought, okay, I'll stay for a couple of more years at Barcelona and then go. Obviously, that didn't happen. So he ended up going to PSG and signed a 2-year contract. And so I believe that he thinks that's probably enough time for him to do what he wants to do left in Europe and then go. Barcelona, obviously, financially now, because they've been dumped out of the Champions League, that really hurts them. And it's going to be a big problem for them to actually come up with that money, let alone bring back Lionel Messi, pay his wages and so on. If anything, they need to reduce the wages of players and they need to also show some of them the door. So I don't think it's very likely that they would bring him back for economic reasons. And also from a football point of view, Xavi's trying to rebuild something. So to have Messi come back for maybe a year, I'm not sure that it would really work in his plans. That's not exactly what he would want to do. It could be a disruption rather than a help. But in any case, if you do get Lionel Messi and he wants to come back, then you're not going to say no, of course. So we'll see. But I personally don't see it happening. I think he's more likely to head across the Atlantic and try a new life in the MLS.
Well, Semra, you've just said that some players might leave, they have to reduce the wages. Let's talk about some that could. Robert Lewandowski, he said he's comfortable and happy despite them failing to qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League. Do you think we could see him or other players leaving?
I think it's entirely possible, yes. I think even as soon as the winter transfer market, there are certainly some positions that do need to be bolstered. And in order to do so, then you also have to make way for those kinds of players to come in, both financially as well as within the squad too. There is, for example, Piqué and Busquets, if I remember correctly. Both of them, I think, are out of contract in the summer. It's not very likely that they'll have their contracts renewed. And those are two very important players, veterans as well as captains in the side. So you'll see, I think, definitely a change in terms of those who could come and go in the next few months. So Lewandowski, I suspect, will stay. They obviously can still win the league. They can still win the Europa League or the Cup. So there's still silverware to be won. And obviously, by virtue of finishing in the top 4 of the league, then they at least would qualify again for the Champions League. So I think he understands that this is a work in progress, that this is a transitional moment for Barcelona, much bigger perhaps, much sooner than we thought it would be based on all the work that they did in the summer by bringing in 6 or 7 players. But in any case, I think Lewandowski is enjoying life in Barcelona. Barcelona as a city is a wonderful place to live. And so I don't suspect that he'll be leaving anytime soon.
As for Real Madrid, they've been linked with England and Borussia Dortmund midfielder Jude Bellingham. What are the chances of that happening?
Well, I suppose the chances are probably pretty good. Why not? I mean, we're only 2 months into the season. Anything can happen by next summer, obviously. But he has been a target of Real Madrid in the past. And I think he could be a really good player to fit into the squad, considering that Luka Modric will be 38, I think, next year. Toni Kroos, we're not yet sure if he wants to renew his contract. The club want to keep him, but he hasn't decided anything yet. So both of them at some stage in the next couple of years will be leaving the club. They will need replacements. And the fact that Jude Bellingham is so young, 19 years old, he could join this fabulous midfield that Real Madrid have been building with Tchouaméni, with Camavinga, with Fede Valverde, for example. So it all depends on whether he wants to go to Real Madrid or if he wants to go back to England. I hear reportedly that there are several clubs that are very interested in hiring his services. He obviously may feel that he wants to return home. It depends on what he's also after, but I think Real Madrid are very much interested in trying to sign a player of his quality at his age, and he certainly could be one for the future, and that fits very much in line with the strategy of Real Madrid's at present. So we'll see. I think it's a little bit too soon to know right now, but it certainly could be a very viable option in the future.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that one, Semra. Thank you.